Well, good morning, grade 8. We're getting into lesson 9.2 here this morning. And as you can see here on your screen, lesson 9.2 has to do with the Pythagorean theorem. And the Pythagorean theorem is connected to right triangles, or triangles that have a right angle. Okay? And the formula we're going to be working with is that the length of side A squared plus the length of side B squared equals the length of side C, which is what we call the hypotenuse squared. So C is always the longest side. In a right triangle, the hypotenuse is always across opposite the right angle. The other two, A or B, it really doesn't matter which one you label A or B. What's important is what C is, and that is the longest side, like we said, what we call the hypotenuse, and it is opposite where the right angle is. So today's lesson, the first part of lesson 9.2, lesson 9.2a, has to do with the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, and that all has to do with right triangles. All right, so that's the formula we're going to be working with. We're going to be referring to that a lot. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So let's get to our first board here. All right, find the missing length of the triangle. So we're going to be using this formula, this A squared plus B squared equals C squared, to kind of help us figure out what these different lengths are. Now let me grab my calculator that I almost forgot to grab. All right, so we'll go ahead and turn that on. So here we want to know length C, which is the hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle. So it's A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So I know that actually what it's going to be happening here is 15 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared. All right, so that's not hard. I'm going to come over here to my calculator. I'm going to enter in 15. All right, and I'm a little unfamiliar with this calculator, so I'm just going to go 15 times 15 to square it, and that's going to equal 225. So 15 squared is 225. Most calculators will have a square button. I'm going to try this one here. This is a new calculator for me. 8. What happens when I square that? Enter, and I'm not sure what's going on there. So I'm just going to go 8 times 8 for 8 squared. We know what that is anyway. That's going to be 64. So plus 64 equals C squared. So now I know that if I add 225 plus 64, so we clear that, 225, okay, plus 64, that equals 289. All right, so now I know that C squared equals 289, but I don't want to know what C squared is. I need to know what C is. So I'm going to take 289, and I'm going to see if this just works to press the square root button. Well, okay, so I'm just going to go 289, close parentheses, equals 17. Sure enough, C equals 17. And most of your calculators, you'll just have a thing that you can press, and it gives you the square root. But the hypotenuse should always be the longest side, so that makes sense. C is 17, and it's longer than both 15 and 18. All right, well, now we've got one with with fractions. So, all right, we're going to enter in a fraction here. Hopefully this can work out okay. And we're going to go for this one here, 3/10 and 2/5. So once again, we're going to have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm going to use 3/10 for A. So I'm going to go 3/10, I'm going to go, let me see what they have me do here. That's our numerator, 3. And we're going to press our denominator button, denominator. And then we're going to press 10. That's not what I wanted to do. So let's try that again. We're going to go 10, numerator, and then 3, denominator. That's not working either. Struggling with the calculator here today is Mr. Swack. 3. We're going to make that my numerator. Then we're going to make 10 my denominator. All right. Then we're going to press enter. All right. And we're going to multiply that by 3, numerator, 10. And we're going to say that that equals 9 over 100. So we're squaring 3/10 times 3/10, and that's going to equal 9 over 100. Then b squared, we're going to do 2/5 times 2/5. So we're going to come in here, 2, numerator, 5 times 2, numerator, 5, equals, should give us 4 over 25. All right, so we're plus 4 over 25, and that whole thing equals c squared. So we squared 3/10 and got 9 over 100. We squared 2/5 and got 4 over 25. Now we're going to add those together. So we're going to come back here. We're going to clear this again. So we're going to take 9 over 100 plus 4 over 25. So we're going to go 9, numerator, 100. And we're going to add that to 4, numerator, over 25, and all that equals 25 over 100, okay? And so I'm going to say, okay, 25 over 100, c squared equals 25 over 100, but then I'm going to take my 25, numerator, over 100, denominator, and I'm going to find the square root of that. We're going to clear that. Apparently I need to enter the square root button first. Square root, 25, numerator, over 100. Close the parentheses. I want 100. Close the parentheses. Equals 0.5. C equals 0.5, or 1/2. And I like that because 1/2 is indeed bigger than both 2/5 and 3/10. All right, let's move right along. I'm not a big fan of this calculator, but it's what we have today. All right, so now this one's a little different because we know what the hypotenuse is. So it's still a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, so it's still that. But we're going to put in a for 16 squared, so I'm going to clear that. We're going to go 16 times 16. That's going to equal 256. So for a squared, we're going to have 256 plus b squared equals c squared. Well, I already know c squared. C is 34. So I'm going to clear it here. And we're going to go 34 times 34. And that equals 1,156. So c squared is 1,156. Now, I basically now have an equation where to isolate b squared, I'm going to subtract 256 from both sides. So I've already got 1,156 in here. So I'm going to subtract 256. And that's going to give me 900. So b squared equals 900. Now I've just got to find the square root of 900 to know what b is. So I'm going to clear that. I'm going to clear that again. I'm going to go square root. It opens the parentheses for me, as you can see there. going to type in 900. I'm going to close the parentheses. I'm going to press equals. It's going to gives me an error, which doesn't make any sense. Let's go ahead and clear. Let's clear it again. Let's just clear everything. All right, we're going to go square root. It opens the parentheses. We're going to go 900. I know what this should be. It should not be giving me an error. Equals 30. There we go. For some reason, I had an extra 9 in there. And that makes sense, because if my hypotenuse is 34, this length of B needs to be smaller. So B equals 30. All right, here we go again. One last one for this section. 9.6, 10.4. We know the hypotenuse, that's 10.4. So we have A squared plus B squared, and we're going to make B 9.6. So we come over here, we clear. We have 9.6 times 9.6. And that's all going to equal 92.16. All right. So A squared plus 92.16 equals 10.4 times C squared, which is going to be the 10.4 times 10.4. So I clear that out. 10.4 times 10.4. And that's going to equal 108.16. So here we go, 108.16. But now I'm going to isolate the A squared by subtracting 92.16 from both sides. So I've already got the 108.16. I'm going to subtract the 92.16 to isolate A squared, but I got to do the same thing to this side. So minus 92.16, and that equals 16. A squared equals 16. Well, if A squared is 16, I have a feeling that A is going to equal 4. But let's just make sure in our calculator, because I believe that the square root of 16 is 4. I'm going to press square root. It's going to open parentheses, 16. Close parentheses. I'll make that all equal. Amazingly 4. Mr. Swack got it right. All right, nice job. Okay, the final part of your assignment today has to do with three-dimensional figures and using the Pythagorean theorem within three-dimensional figures. Now here I have a triangular prism with two triangles all connected by rectangles, and as we can see, this triangle to the left, the front, and this triangle in the back are going to be equivalent. So this x side here is going to represent the hypotenuse, which is right here. There's a right angle. So I know that 9 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared, because x is my hypotenuse. If I make 9a and 12b, a squared plus b squared equals x squared. So here we go. We're going to enter in square root. It opens the parentheses 9, close the square root, should give us 81. No, I pressed square root. The square root of 9 is 3. My mistake there, folks. It should be 9 times 9 because we're squaring it, which equals 81. Now, this is just going to be 12 times 12. 12 times 12 is 144. All right, I've already got 81 in there, so I'm just going to go ahead and add my 144, and that's going to give me 225. 81 plus 144 equals 225. So I know that x squared equals 225. So I need to find what the square root of 225 is. I clear my parentheses. I press my square root button. It opens the parentheses. I type in 225. I close the parentheses. And what does that give me? It equals, should be 15. X equals 15, which makes sense because the hypotenuse is always the longest side, and that's going to be longer than the 9 and the 12. All right, last one for today's video. Here we have a pyramid of some sort. Looks like maybe a triangular pyramid, all right, where we've got triangles on either side. And so we've got and then a triangular base, so we've got a triangular pyramid. But inside here we have a right angle, and it's giving us this length 8.8, this length 6.6, and this length here from the top to the bottom of this triangular side, this triangular face, is x. So x is our hypotenuse. So once again, we're going to have 8.8 to the power of 2 plus 6.6 to the power of 2 is going to equal x to the power of 2. All right, so we're going to square, make 8.8a, make 6.6b. X is clearly our hypotenuse. So we come over, we're going to go 8.8 times 8.8, and that's going to give us 77.44. So this is going to be 77.44. We're going to square 6.6. We're going to clear that here, so we're going to go 6.6 times 6.6, and we're going to enter there, 43.56 plus 43.56 equals x squared. Well, we've already got the 43.56 in there, so let's add in the 77.44. So we're going to add 77.44, and that whole thing is going to equal 121, and I would agree with that. So this tells me that x squared equals 121, which means I just need to find the square root of 121. We're going to clear that. We're going to press my square root button. We're going to go 121. We're going to close the parentheses. All right, and we're going to press enter, and it should tell us that it equals 11. X equals 11, and I like that because 11 is longer than both 8.8 and 6.6. So once again, holding true that the hypotenuse, that side opposite the right angle, is the longest side. All right, that's an introduction to Pythagorean theorem, 8th grade. Talk to you later. Bye.